So the African Telecoms Outlook. So I'm going to be looking at a few statistics about what's been happening or the key trends in the African telecoms markets nowadays. I was going to start with a few words about the context in which telecom operators are evolving at present, and then a few statistics about what the networks have been used to and the key digital services on this continent. So let's first look at the context in which telecom operators have been operating in Africa. Well, the difficulties for us as a research firm, we produce a lot of forecasts and statistics, is that we usually produce data, forecasting what's going to be happening over the next 3 to 5 years, and we have to take into account everything that is happening in the market. So our first set of data, which was produced before the COVID-19, and then and some situation like the COVID-19 happens, and all has to be revised. So we're first going to look at what the IMF was reporting for Africa or Sub-Saharan Africa last year. The continent was facing like an economic growth, like a recovery underway, and the forecast was that the economy was growing in Africa from 3% in 2018 to 3.5% in 2019, and the growth was expected to stabilize just a little below 4% in the medium term. In terms of further context, in Sub-Saharan Africa, one of its key assets was its population, which has been growing constantly and also which is very young. We're talking about a population of over 1 billion in 2019, and which is forecast to grow over 1.4 billion by 2030. Now, as everyone knows, early in 2020, we entered difficult times with the COVID-19 pandemic crisis. At Open, we did a bit of revision in terms of forecast or adapting, if we can say so, and we are forecasting that global mobile revenues were hit and are still being hit by the COVID-19 crisis for 2020. And we are expecting the global mobile revenues to fall by 4% in 2020 as a result of this crisis. If we look at as well service revenues worldwide, we were expecting them to decline to 750 billion, down by 51 billion compared to our previous forecast in 2020. In terms of technology uptake, since end of last year and early 2020, 5G was a hot topic. And in terms of 5G launch and expectations, we've seen a lot of telcos around the world downgrading their plans due to the current crisis, except maybe in China. Another segment that was also interesting to look at was the fixed broadband revenue, which was not as hit. As everyone knows, the COVID-19 crisis has also fueled a huge uptake in terms of data usage. So in terms of fixed broadband revenue globally, Oven was expecting it to grow by around 1% in 2022, over 335 billion globally. Looking at how the telecoms operators have been responding to the crisis, we've put together a tracker just as the crisis kicked off in around April, to see what operators were doing. And most of the initiative led by the telcos were to address consumer needs. And this is more happening, or this has been more happening in Africa, whereby the consumer segment is very big, and we have most of our population relying on informal income and being under pressure in terms of revenues due to the crisis. So now we're going to narrow to statistics in Africa. So in terms of mobile subscriptions, it's a market over 1.1 billion as at mid-1.1 billion, subscription as at mid-2020, with the population penetration of about 85%. I've listed the top 10 largest markets on the continent, likes of Omdia, which obviously is the largest market, essentially pushed by its large population, and with South Africa, Egypt, and Kenya, just following Nigeria. What we can see is that there's a lot of disparity in terms, well, a few disparity in terms of penetration, mobile penetration, but also in terms of broadband penetration. If you look at mobile penetration, the average of the continent is 85%. You can see that quite a few of the top markets have exceeded that penetration. The only ones that remain far below the average are the likes of Ethiopia, for instance, which penetration stood at 40%. The main reason is the lack of competition on the continent. As we know, there's only one player on this market, and we are expecting a bit of liberalization. Hopefully, that will push the growth further in this market. Another market as well that is under-penetrated, the DR Congo, with 41% penetration. So unlike Ethiopia, there's quite a few competition in terms of number of players in this market. However, population coverage is still a challenge for the operators. It's a very vast territory, and also the population as well being not able to afford the services. Other points that are worth mentioning in our on this continent is also mobile broadband usage. So this is a continent which is essentially connected via mobile networks, and this is obviously a metric to look at in order to assess the readiness of the continent in terms of digital services. As at mid-2020, mobile broadband penetration was 62% in Africa. So this is not population penetration, but this is a penetration based on the number of mobile subscriptions. In terms of revenues, the continent was expected to generate 51 billion revenues in 2020, and this number is expected to grow to $61 billion in 2024, with data services and essentially non-SMS data services generating now a huge part of the revenues. Still looking at the penetration rates across the continent, the numbers that I had just displayed on the previous slide were about population SIM card penetrations, so number of SIM cards, and this takes into account multiple SIM card usage. Whereas here we have a look at the unique mobile subscriptions, where it is actually the real penetration rate in terms of how many people and not SIM cards are connected, and we can see that at around 84% in 2019, Africa was still below the average. At around 52% in 2019, Africa was still below the average, global average of 68% at that particular time. We're still forecasting that by 2024, only 56% of African people will be connected to a mobile device. In terms of topics or services that I wanted to highlight, so I've mentioned it a bit before, the broadband segment is a real key driver for the telecoms industry and the digital services in Africa, since obviously that these are this is the way to connect to the services. And we're going to look at fixed broadband and mobile broadband. So if we first look at the fixed broadband segment, we can see that the subscriptions are dominated by the DSL subscription for the moment. This is a continent view, but the picture obviously differs from a market to another. And these ADSL subscriptions are essentially concentrated in Northern and Southern Africa, and a little bit in West Africa with markets such as Senegal or Cote d'Ivoire. But in terms of forecast for the moment, we still see it over the next 4 years as a dominant technology, which is replaced, or which the operators are replacing gradually by fiber technology. So now it also depends on the markets. So I take the example of South Africa, for instance, where the market leader has accelerated its transition from ADSL to fiber, and is expected to close down its ADSL network within the next 2 years. The technology to look at in this segment is fixed wireless, or LTE used for fixed wireless, in green here. And we've seen over the past 2 years a huge increase in terms of subscriptions, in terms of uptake. And this is as a result of network deployments, faster network deployments compared to the fixed services, but also more affordable services compared to the fixed networks. Another technology as well that has been growing, although we still forecast that it's not going to be a dominant technology over the next 5 years, it's satellite connectivity. So it's true that like about 10 years ago, we probably had forecast that satellite usage would have not only decreased, but probably disappeared as a result of people switching to more affordable fixed wireless technologies. However, there's been a regain in terms of usage, mainly pushed by big players such as Yasat, for instance, whereby services are pushed to small and medium enterprise, and also like internet cyber cafes, for instance, and deployed to cover underserved and rural areas, which are still difficult to reach or difficult to cover for traditional fixed technologies, and also sometimes fixed mobile technologies. Now, looking at the mobile technologies. So again, LTE is also a driver and a key driver in terms of connectivity. We forecast that the number of mobile broadband usage that combines 3G and 4G and 5G as well when it starts, or it has started in some markets, to exceed 1 billion connections in Africa at the end of 2024. And by that time, they will represent 79% of the 1.4 billion connections on the continent. So 3G remains and is expected to remain the dominant technology over the next 5 years, whilst technology is catching fast and is expected to become the second most used technology by 2023. The recent event, or the crisis, has pushed data usage further, and also pushed the operators to implement more affordable prices, or look at their strategies in terms of mobile broadband, or accelerate the strategies in terms of mobile broadband. So when we revised this forecast again, we might see a shift, like 4G becoming the second technology at a faster pace. We in terms of GSM, which is the 2G technology, we still have it in use on the continent. I know that in some other regions, operators are talking about maybe closing their 2G networks. We still have people actually with income just allow them to buy some devices which are just 2G enabled, although the price of the devices are declining. But what we can also mention for the GSM technology is that it's going to remain relevant for other applications, especially in the IoT or machine-to-machine segment. So now if we look at the drivers in terms of mobile broadband usage, or still in the drivers, we talked about the technologies. Now we can also mention the usage of devices, and smartphone usage has been key to drive broadband usage in Africa. Most of the people connect essentially via their smartphones, and we forecast that the number of smartphones in use actively on the continent is going to rise from 442 million in 2019 to 876 million in 2024. So unlike in other markets, so that we are not in an environment where the devices or buying a device is being subsidized, apart maybe from in South Africa, where it is the case for about 17 to 20% of the mobile users. So therefore, in terms of the crisis hitting the sale of devices in Africa, obviously we're still yet to see what the outcome is going to be, but we can confidently say that in terms of usage, it might not be that hit because people were already used to buy their devices up front, and the price of the devices are continually dropping. So in terms of statistics here, we have the growth in terms of number of smartphone usage between 2019 and 2020, but also the handset sales volume in Africa per operating system. And we can see that this is really dominated by the Android devices, the main reason being that Android devices come in different ranges, high-end, but essentially lower-end or entry-level devices, which are affordable to the most. Still looking at handset sales, so I've seen that this is more a global trend that we've put together, and we see that handset sales globally has been driven by smartphones, sub-$100 smartphone, over not only globally but also in Africa, and that's what's going to happen over the next 5 years. In terms of growth, we can see here with the pink dots the compound annual growth rates over the next 5 years, and we can clearly see that the only example that we have, or the two examples that we have for Africa, are South Africa and Nigeria. But we can still see a high growth, about 7% for Nigeria, and nearly 3% for South Africa. And like many African countries, Nigeria is expected to see faster smartphone growth over the next 5 years as a result of the price of the devices declining and the demand as well growing. Now we've talked about the drivers in terms of data uptake, and we can also talk about what has been holding back data usage as well, or what can hold back data usage in Africa. And pricing has been a topic, hot topic across all the markets, whereby we have a relatively high cost of data for the population, especially if you compare to their income. I've just highlighted a few price per megabyte, average price per megabyte, minimum price per megabyte, and maximum price per megabyte in various markets. African markets that we have here are South Africa and Nigeria. And if we look at the average price for a 30-day price plan, you can see that we are a country like South Africa is more expensive, as a market like the United Kingdom, for instance, or even Italy, where obviously the level of incomes in average is not the same. So that's about, it's not the same. That's for a 30-day price plan. However, in terms of minimum prices, so rather that it's true that there's been a lot of pressure for the operators to reduce their prices. And there are obviously a lot underlying issues for them as well to reduce their prices. They need to make profit, and there are also a lot of cost involved. So what it's interesting to see is the minimum price, because operators in Africa have been essentially going into pricing segmentation, which allow the customers to buy data by chunk and therefore at a lower price. I'm just talking about the fact that you can get a daily bundle, for instance, an hourly bundle, or a bundle that is based on the type of service that you want to use. In terms of usage, now we're going to look at the key digital services that the telcos have been turning to or pushing over the past month or over the past few years, and that also we see key for the future growth as well. Mobile financial services, known as mobile money in some market, and M-Pesa, Airtel Money, and so forth, are a key. So this is a key segment of the digital strategy for the operators. We are here looking at the number of users for the four largest operators across Africa, and the four of them combined over 100 million mobile financial users in Africa in 2019. We forecast that the number of users is set to increase from 148 million in 2019 to over 200 million by 2021. And the transaction value in 2019 was around $24 billion. So obviously this forecast was put together before the COVID-19 crisis. And looking at the operators' recent results, what we've seen is that the usage of mobile financial services has increased a lot during the lockdown. When the lockdown were implemented. In terms of transaction value or revenues generated from this segment, we've seen telecom operators dropping charges a lot, and therefore putting pressure on the mobile financial services revenues. Another service as well that has been pushed or that has seen a big uptake during the COVID-19 pandemic and is still seeing as of now is video usage on the continent. So here we have a few statistics where we split video usage per social video viewed over social media, OTT video subscriptions, and video on demand, which is AVOD, which is free of charge essentially, such as your YouTube or Daily Motion. So most of the traffic of the videos has been generated on social media platforms. You see, we are saying 15,000 petabytes over social video in 2019, and we expect this number to go to 94,000 by 2024. In terms of traffic by platform, we've split between cellular networks, fixed broadband essentially, and Wi-Fi as well. Wi-Fi has been more popular essentially because very often the users access Wi-Fi connectivity for free. we expect the number of OTT video subscription to jump from 2.8 million. So I'm just talking about OTT video subscriptions. Since they are subscription, it's probably easier to quantify them in 2019. And they will generate around $166 million also in 2019. And then my last slide is about 5G. I know that this is a hot topic around the world and also a bit about the continent. For the moment, it's still really a hot topic. We've had a few launches here and there, so we can name South Africa, the Seychelles as well, Madagascar, where I think it was Telecom Malagasy eventually launched, but then was ordered to hold the launch at some point. I think the matter is still being resolved. So we ran a survey back at the end of 2019 during AfricaCom with various questions, and also this is the result of the question about investment priorities in the next 12 months. It could be that if we were to ask this question now, again, the answers would obviously be different. But what we've noticed is that 5G was not the top priority of the businesses that were surveyed at that time. It only come in position number 6, and the likes of IoT in position number 9. So the priority at that time was more into mobile applications or digital service development, cloud services, big data, customer engagement as well. So this is my my last slide, but obviously I think we're going to keep the conversation with thank you for listening, and we look forward for further discussion during